Excuse me. Good evening, everyone. The regular business meeting of the Independent School District 279 School Board is called to order at 6 p.m. on October 19th, 2021. This regular business meeting of the Osceola School Board is being conducted in person. This meeting can be monitored electronically by streaming online from the district website. An archived recording of tonight's meeting will also be available on the district's website. Seated in front of you this evening, from my left to your right, are Director Tamara Grady.
Hello.
Director Thomas Brooks, Director Jackie Mosqueda-Jones, myself, Kelsey Dawson-Walton, Director Tanya Simons, and Director Douglas Wool is not present today. Superintendent Corey Mcintyre and General Counsel Tim Palmentier are also, there you are, I was like, okay, I like, are also in the boardroom, along with our student school board representatives, and we'll be introducing them shortly. They are here. We also, in our audience, have some Maple Grove High School students from government class, so we're happy to see you all here today as well. The superintendent's cabinet and other district administrators are seated in another conference room with the live stream of this meeting being shown on a monitor. Individuals will come into the boardroom as needed. Those who can, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Director Simons, will you please lead us?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Board members, in front of you is the agenda. Are there any changes or additions to the agenda? Okay. Is there any discussion? Oh, I'm sorry. Is there a motion? Sorry if I do that.
So moved.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Now is there any discussion? All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion passes 6-0. All right, at this time, Superintendent Mcintyre will introduce our first ever student school board representatives. But first, on behalf of the entire board, I would like to express how excited and happy we are to have you here this evening. You know, we talk a lot about student voice, and and we very much value student voice, and we have such a diverse district, and so it's such an important part of our decision-making process, and really why we're all here, because of our students. So, Superintendent Mcintyre, I will turn it over to you.
Thank you, Chair Dawson-Walton, and good evening, board members. I'm also very excited tonight to introduce our very first ever student school board representatives group here in Osseo area schools. As the chair mentioned, our school board highly prioritizes and values student voice. And over the last few months, we've developed our school board student representatives program, which I'm excited to have it start tonight. As we launch the program, our student representatives know that serving on the school board is going to be a little challenging due to different priorities and perspectives, but more importantly, they also know, as we've been meeting with them, how rewarding it can be, because they have the opportunity to make a difference in the lives of their fellow students. The views and insights and updates and suggestions that you as school board reps will bring great insight to the district as students in our system, and will have lasting impacts on the district. And you serving in a leadership position allows the chance to learn a little bit more about yourself, I think, and about others, and will prepare you for leading whatever you choose to do as a career path for you down the road, whether it's community or civic engagement or any other roles and aspirations you may have. So we are very proud of each of you for pursuing this opportunity to provide leadership to the district. Board members, our selection process included very specific eligibility criteria to serve as a student school board rep. There was advertising and promotion of this opportunity in our high schools, along with details of the program and the application process. And interested students submitted their candidacy for consideration, and they participated in an interview process, and the students with us tonight were those selected. I will now introduce Amy Janisek, our district level principal, who is serving as our student school board representative mentor. And Amy spent a lot of time with our student reps here over the last few days, and she'll assist with the introduction of our new student representatives. Thank you, Amy.
Thank you, Superintendent Mcintyre, and I just want to say I'm thrilled. You can't see behind my mask, but I have a huge smile because there's been a lot of planning and learning about this opportunity. So the fact that you're all here tonight is really, really exciting. And I want to thank our board
to create this opportunity for our students, and we'll certainly learn and evolve as we go. And you are amazing to be our firsts. So we are really, really grateful and excited for you to be here. So they are going to introduce themselves, and they are going to share what school they are from. So if you want to get started, Cal?
Yep, so my name's Cal Thorson. I'm from Maple Grove Senior High, and I'm a current senior.
My name is Faith Sua. I'm a senior at Osseo Senior High School.
My name is Hanaya, and I am a sophomore at Park Center.
My name is Nadia, and I am a senior at Osseo Area Learning Center.
Thank you very much. And at this time, we invited each of the students to share a school report that will highlight the goings-on, the highlights, and just different really exciting things that they would like to share with our school community that is happening in each one of their school communities.
So I'll go first. Maple Grove has had a very busy fall to start off the school year. We had our homecoming just a couple of weeks ago. Students showed a lot of school spirit during Spirit Week, where we wear things like country versus country club, jersey out, eventful days like that. We had a record attendance at homecoming with a total of 1,600 students attending. Our homecoming pep fest included student performances, class dance-offs, and a winner of the Crimson Cup to the class with the most spirit. We have had some success in sports recently. Our girls tennis team was 5A section champions for the first time in school history. Crimson football won the Metro Gold North with a record of 6-1. And our girls soccer is competing in the section championship tonight.
We also just got done with Spirit Week, and our goal is to bring Spirit back to Osseo, especially going on like coronavirus and stuff. So we also had a record-breaking attendance at our homecoming dance. We also had our Pep Fest, and our goal was to get everybody involved, so we used social media, particularly Instagram, and we had a competition between each class for our trek to the jug, and that was our catchphrase, and we added the school, and the senior class won. Right now, we're looking at our football team for their last game of the year before they go into their playoff game. Right now, they're 3-3, which is pretty good. And they have a game Thursday night. Soccer just finished out their season. They had a pretty good year. And right now, cross country is doing pretty well as well. And right now, our goal is just to bring school spirit back and get everybody back in the motion of school.
My name is Hanaya, and at Park Center we have unified classes, and unified classes are where special ed students and non-special ed students are able to take classes together, and I think that's a great opportunity to create bonds. And also at our Pep Fest, at our Spirit Week, one of the special ed students, Lucky, got nominated for Homecoming Royalty, which I think is very good. And at the Pep Fest, I noticed that our school mascot got redesigned to represent our student body, which I feel was a great decision because majority of our school was very diverse. So I think that was great. And at homecoming, they played diverse music, which was, I feel like it connected the students more and made the students feel more accepted and like they had a home or a place to be. Like they played Afro music and K-pop and all different types of genres, and I really enjoyed it. It was a great experience. And I really bonded with different cultures.
Hi, my name is Nadia. I go to the OLC. We don't have Pep Fest, but even though we do have a lot of graduates within the summer and the beginning of this school year, we've had 33 graduates so far, and we're just planning on getting more. That's it.
Thank you so much to all of our reps for sharing a little bit more about, we know that we are in a very diverse school community and that each of our schools have different school cultures and just different rituals and routines and events that happen. So I just want to say thank you for taking time to share, because for you that might be part of your everyday high school experience, but for all of us, what we hear is really unique. And so thank you very much for sharing.
I would just say, I mean, no offense, Superintendent Mcintyre, because usually you would give some of those updates, but it's kind of a different feel when you, when we're actually hearing from our students. So thank you so much. And, you know, just the student representatives, you know, you've reviewed the board meeting packet in advance, and they're prepared to answer any questions from board members on issues to seek student input related to tonight's agenda items for this evening's meeting. Board members, do any of you have any agenda items for which you'd like student input? No?
Our only action today is accepting gifts, so I don't have a whole lot of questions on that. So I'm glad that you didn't have a real heavy one to start off. Thank you for being here.
So I have a question. So tonight we're talking about comprehensive services supports, cultivating wellness, and we're kind of talking about the different supports for students to ensure that we've got students have what they need to thrive in your school environment. So some of you all kind of gave some updates, especially related to homecoming, on kind of how you know, wanting to really come together and to drive school spirit. So if any of you would like to kind of share how the start of the school year has been in your schools and how you feel the climate is, and if there's anything that we need to know as we understand this presentation tonight.
So a big part of school this year has been just getting back to the flow of normal school. So I feel like having just as many resources as possible to help students with their mental health and connecting them to those resources and making sure they know how to access those resources is the most important thing going back into a normal school year. So I think they've been doing, our schools have been doing a really good job of that, but the more we can focus on mental health in schools, the better.
So one thing that I noticed at Osseo is, like he said, we're trying to get back in the flow of things, but there's another thing that we're, like we've been having a lot of administrators come and go, especially we have a new principal, and then with us going on online, it's been hard to like kind of connect with like the new administrators because of like the whole coronavirus thing, and then like, you know, they'd be pretty busy and stuff like that as soon as they're trying to learn how to get back in the flow of things. So we're really trying to like connect with the admins because they're new, and like specifically for me, the admins that I had freshman year are no longer there, and the admins I had sophomore year are no longer there, and then plus hybrid, and then we went back online again. Some admins did change again, so we're just trying to connect. And then like the mask thing, you know, admins are having to remind students to make sure your mask is up, and then some students are feeling like it's kind of hard to have the mask on, especially if we're so active with like gym and stuff. Some people take gym, and to have the mask on is kind of like difficult. So those are the type of things that we're just trying to like make it a part of normal life.
So our school has been having meetings in the auditorium where they show the students, like not only freshmen, but they show all the students how things were, and they've been taking it slow, which I think is really good. And I feel like throughout the year they should continue to like do those check-ins every once in a while to make sure things are going how they are supposed to be going.
At the OLC, we did just get 3 new assistant principals, but every time during passing time, all the admins do come out, so we get to see and actually talk to them if we really wanted to. And I feel like that's a good thing to do because it actually do give us time to actually talk and speak to them if we really wanted to. We do have a calming room there to give the students a little break, a 20-minute break if you need to. If you got something on your mind, give you something. They have aromatherapy and everything in there, so that's a good thing. Also, we have, I don't know if we could say teachers' names. No? Probably not. But we do have a teacher's room where if you do have a lot on your mind and you're probably tired, you could go lay down for a little 20 minutes, and I think that's a good thing as well. So,
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else have any questions? All right, well, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, the next agenda item is audience opportunity to address the school board. I'm going to read a few guidelines for those that will speak tonight. During the audience opportunity to address the school board, I'll call on each speaker who has submitted a speaker card. We ask that speakers keep their comments to 3 minutes. The board does not take action or discuss matters during this portion of the meeting. Speakers may be referred to the superintendent or staff if follow-up is necessary. The complete guidelines for the public participation are provided on the meeting material table and on the school board section of the district website. When I call your name, please come to the microphone and state your name, your topic, and also state whether or not you are a district resident. So tonight we have one speaker, Terry McNeil.
Thank you for giving me this opportunity. My name is Terry McNeil. I'm a resident in Osseo, and we are the parents of a 9th grader in Osseo this year. And so the reason, we're coming to the board meeting, superintendent and board members, is it came to our attention that in her 9th grade required reading, they are reading Trevor Noah's Born a Crime publication. And I did attend the parent orientation. I was aware that this book was reading material. I guess I had a high trust level that everything was appropriate. And in my research of this book, I looked at it online. She had it open. I read some passages. And I'm going to read you some passages from this book. And I just think that this was a big swing and a miss. And it really makes me question the controls at 279. Is there a peer review of these subject matters? So from the book, Trevor Noah is talking to his mom. And his mom says, "Trevor, don't forget, you're having sex with a woman in her mind before you're having sex with her in her vagina. Trevor, foreplay begins during the day. It doesn't begin in the bedroom." Another passage is, and this is when Trevor's talking about looking at pornography online with a dial-up service. He says, "You'd spend a good 5 minutes looking at her face, getting to know her as a person. Then a few minutes later, you'd get some boobs. By the time you got to her vagina, you had spent a lot of quality time together." Now, that is not what I expect, okay, from my child's required reading, 9th grade. The F word is used 32 times. This is a 200-page book. So every 6 pages, it's F this, effing that. The word shit is used 100 times. Again, a 200-page book. I think that, I had a high degree of trust. I went to Fair Oaks. My mom was a social worker at 279. My brothers graduated Park Center. My neighbors work at 279. So I have no axe to grind. But then when I see this, it really
30 seconds remaining.
really gets my radar up. And now that trust is eroded. So I do have to be more active, and I have to do my part. But I will go to the teacher. We will talk about this. You gave me proper steps, but I thought it was my duty as a parent to say, hey, this is not right, and we can do better. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Terry. Our next agenda item is the superintendent's report. Superintendent Mcintyre.
All right, good evening. I'm watching to see if Kay is in the room to help me out with some slides.
Why isn't the screen on?
Yeah, I'm waiting to say that too.
Are we televised? Yes, we should be.
Just giving our team a second here to get our screens up again.
There we go.
Okay, thank you very much, and thank you, Kay, for helping me advance. So thank you, Chair Dawson Walton and board members. Good evening again. As I start my superintendent's report, there continues to be strong enthusiasm and excitement as we move deeper into the school year. I'll just give you guys a second here.
So keep going.
Okay. As we approach the MEA weekend here, I think there's probably no better year than this year that everyone needs a little bit of a break with everything we've had to kind of relearn as we started the year here. So I'm very proud of our efforts of our students and families and staff as we continue to forge a new path. That's our slogan for this year. And even as we continue to adapt to the difficulties that the pandemic's brought, systems and routines continue to fall into place for that next normal that we're learning. So first tonight, I'm going to start with our points of pride, a regular part of my superintendent's report, and to share the pride in our district. Our points of pride celebrate students, staff, and community members who are contributing to the accomplishments of our mission, which is to inspire and prepare all students with the confidence, courage, and competence to achieve their dreams, contribute to community, and engage in a lifetime of learning. So in the area of achieving dreams, 4 students from Park Center Senior High class of 2021 have earned the prestigious International Baccalaureate Diploma, proving themselves as well-rounded, self-motivated scholars who excelled in rigorous college preparatory curriculum. Congratulations to Park Center's alumni, pictured left to right, Cole Beatty, Jonathan Marcella, Min Tong, and Jalea Yang for achieving this honor. Beatty is enrolled at Grinnell College, Marcella at Concordia Moorhead, Tong at the University of Minnesota, and Yang at Stanford University. Again, congratulations to these former Pirates. Congratulations also are in order for our 215 Osseo area school students who've earned their AP Scholar recognition from the College Board based on the advanced placement exams taken during the 2021 year, which you can imagine was an exceptionally challenging year to try to accomplish this. The district's comprehensive high schools reported a combined total of 122 AP Scholars who earned a score of 3 or more on at least 3 AP exams. 35 AP Scholars with honor who earned an average score of at least 3.25 on all AP exams taken and scores of 3 or higher in at least 4 of the AP exams. And we had 58 AP Scholars with distinction who earned an average score of at least 3.5 on all AP exams taken and scores of 3 or higher in at least 5 AP exams. So we're very proud of our scholars for their hard work during such a challenging time. In the area of lifelong learning, I have to give one final plug, you've heard me do this before, for our upcoming Kindergarten Information Fair, which will be held from 9:30 to 11:30 a.m. on October 30th at Edenbrook Elementary School. Staff members from across the district are really looking forward to meeting our newest families, showing off a kindergarten classroom, demonstrating how we use technology in our earliest grade levels, and introducing families to our community partners. Those who would prefer to attend a virtual event can also do so really 24/7 starting that same day on October 30th, and we'll send everything they need right to their home. So RSVPs for both the in-person and virtual events can be found on our website. Scholars in the Opportunities in Emergency Care course at Osseo Senior High School put their skills to the test earlier this month as they practiced coming up on an emergency, assessing the scene, communicating with victims, diagnosing injuries, and administering care. Highlight video is available on the district website, and families who are interested in learning more about the Osseo Senior High's Health Science Magnet Program can do so on the Osseo Senior High School website. In the area of mission-driven employees, again, more great news from Osseo Senior High. Business teacher and Business Professionals of America advisor Tun Mai Kao was awarded the 2021 Best Prep Carpenter Educator of the Year Award at the virtual luncheon on October 7th. Kao was selected from over 700 educators whose students participate in Best Preps programs, including Classroom Plus, Cloud Coach, eMentors, Financial Matters, and the Stock Market Game to receive the award. Osseo Senior High School Principal Sarah Vernig praised Kao's dedication to bringing real-world relevance into her classroom and her commitment to providing a quality educational experience to all Osseo Senior business scholars. So again, congratulations. And finally tonight, as part of my superintendent update, I'll give you a brief update on our COVID-19 preparedness plan, kind of current status on things. As I shared last month, it's worth reiterating again, Osseo Area Schools is committed to providing a safe, healthy learning environment for all students, staff, and community members and visitors, and we continue to learn, as we get deeper into the school year. In regards to COVID-19, this is done by mitigating the transmission potential in our schools and communities. And this is all with the efforts to start and continue to stay in person in our learning model and minimize the spread of the virus and minimize the number of students missing school due to illness. You know, there's been a lot of additional illness at this time of year as well. Our COVID-19 district response teams have been providing support across the district. They've finalized and are now operating with their COVID-19 building safety plans at every site. The site coordinators have received the training for this year and are working those safety plans. And the team has purchased all the disposable and cloth face masks we need for staff and students, which we have been going through quite a few. We're well stocked and have inventory to support students and families who are in need of them. Members of our district COVID team are out visiting and monitoring COVID plans at sites, kind of being able to come and problem solve. And ongoing communications are going out to staff and students and families about our mitigation efforts, wearing masks and doing the health screening before heading out the door to school. Some updated information, basically since our meeting with Public Health last week, the CDC Hennepin County 7-day rate right now is at 227 new cases per 100,000, categorizing it again at that high transmission level. Anything over 100 is at the high transmission category. CDC recommends wearing face mask coverings indoors for areas of substantial or high transmission. The MDH's recommendation continues to be that schools use the CDC's metric for community transmission rate, which is that 7-day case rate per 100,000 to inform their decisions, and our mask requirement is in alignment with that, with the CDC and with the MDH recommendations. More closely to home here within the district, our 7-day case rate's a little higher here in Osseo. When you look at our zip codes in our district, our district zip codes represent a combined case rate of 312, which continues to be higher than that Hennepin County-wide case rate of 227, both well above that threshold of 100 for the high transmission category. This next slide represents the case rates in the county, and I think that picture on the right kind of gives you a sense for visually kind of how the county looks and the transmission rates across the county really continuing to be in that high transmission category. Hennepin County, as of last Thursday, was seeing some increases daily in their monitoring of this and was up about 40 cases per day from the week prior, but it continues to evolve daily. On this next slide, when you look at positive cases by age group compared over time, last time I shared with you last month at that rate, if you look at school age from 0 to age 19, those 3 age categories, the total was at 22.4%. It's up to 28.1 right now. And that prompts our Hennepin County public health officials to continue to share their concerns about the number of cases reported in child care and school settings last week and this week, and continue to see the number of cases under the age of 18. And they're struggling at the county's levels with their capacity to do case investigations and contact tracing. We've been able to maintain pretty high demand on our COVID team, but keeping up with the pace of the work here in the district, which I'll get to in a minute. Quickly, positivity rates among school-age children in the county highlighted here. You know, the concern is over 5%. That's in that high transmission range. And in our school-age groups, you can see it's really ranging from about 6 to nearly 8%, depending on the age group. So we're keeping a close eye on those things, really, really demanding us to stay vigilant with our mitigation efforts. In the district, this from October 12th to October 18th, when you look at specific positive cases in our district, we had 57 cases, student cases this week that within that time frame, and 8 positive cases impacting 23 of our schools. Our symptomatic cases, which can include COVID or just other illness symptoms that are similar, in that same time frame from October 12th to the 18th, we had 277 symptomatic cases, with 92% of those roughly being student cases. For the year, we've seen 343 positive student cases and 57 positive staff cases, and symptomatic cases About 92% again are students, and you can see here it's right around 1,950 symptomatic cases for the year in total. And so I pointed this out last time, but it's that high volume of students and staff who've presented ill continue to put significant stress on our health offices and health services staff. And I just want to take a moment to really thank them. Thank our nurses and others in our health offices for their heroic efforts to start the year and really keep us mitigating as well as we can and working hard in our health offices each and every day. Despite those amazing efforts by our nursing staff, we continue to see those high volumes in our health offices. So I'm really encouraging everyone to help us keep our schools open and safe and remind everyone the importance of staying home when you're sick. To update you on the testing program, this continues to evolve. Based on the options that were given to start the year right as the school year started, our COVID testing program is kind of a complementary program right now with the options available in our community. Our health offices are all provided with vault PCR tests, and we can provide families with those vault PCR tests to send them home with students who are in the nurse's office because of a common or symptoms that might present with COVID. So students can take that PCR test home and with permission from their parents, log on and help get that test administered, and then if they need to, they can bring that back for us to ship it to Vault for results. We're, again, lucky to have an MDH testing site within our district boundaries in Brooklyn Park at the Starlight Center at 8085 Brooklyn Boulevard, and we recommend this location to anyone seeking the tests as they are open 7 days a week with open availability, and they've been really good at getting results back within 24 hours, and I know that's been a really high success rate. And the free saliva test is exactly the same as the one we provided in the district last year. Another option is to order those free saliva kits to use at home as well. A little bit of an update, our COVID team is actively working right now to source additional testing kits that will include options for families and staff members. And one of those kits is the Bionax Now Rapid Antigen Test. And that test will provide students and staff with results within 15 minutes. So right now we're working through the logistics to get that in place, including the proper parental consent that would be needed for anyone who wants to take advantage of that, staff training, and then reporting are all being currently worked on. And this will allow staff and students to return to the classroom when students are mild much faster. So we hope this new option will be in place in the very near future, and we'll keep you updated on when that will go active. COVID-19 vaccination efforts, we are offering an optional vaccine clinic on October 26th and again November 15th for employees and their dependents age 12 and up here from 4 to 7 p.m. at the ESC on those dates. Appointments or walk-ins are welcome, and this clinic is for first-time vaccine or booster shots for those who originally had the Pfizer series of vaccine. Again, walk-ins are available, and those boosters are part of the offering. So we did want to encourage our employees to remember to bring their COVID vaccine card to the appointment. And the booster is also available on both dates. And then lastly, an update on our current resolution that was approved August 20th, requiring students, staff, and visitors to wear face coverings and masks in our school facilities. And the administration's consulting and guidance from the regional support team, MDH, Hennepin County Public Health, and our district response team. So we've used that input from all those groups to continue to use this as a guide, and the guide continues to be used as our team, and I continue to monitor this and determining when I as superintendent would consider making a recommendation to the board for a new decision on any changes. Right now at this time with the CDC rate continuing to be well above that high transmission threshold, I don't have a new recommendation for you this evening or any changes at this time, because of the case rates across really the state, our county, our communities, and in our schools. And I think our mitigation strategy here has helped us continue to keep the vast majority of our students in-person learning and keeping our students, staff, and visitors safe while they're indoors in our buildings. So I plan to bring a recommendation to the board at the November board meeting since the current resolution expires on December 6th. And we'll continue to monitor the status of those case rates, the developments with mitigation strategies of vaccine and COVID testing programs over the next few weeks as those things are evolving. Lastly, Just again, I know we've seen this many times, but I think it's worth mentioning again, we continue to be vigilant about following our 5-step decision-making framework, which is, again, reviewing all the available data we have, requiring consultation with our state and county officials and district stakeholders. Then our district administration designs and develops a recommendation, and then we bring that to you for decision-making, and lastly, implement that and refine it as we need to. Our full COVID response plan, again, is located on our COVID-19 hub on our website, and along with many of our staff and older students who are vaccinated against COVID-19, and with the mitigation strategies in place to keep our scholars and staff safe and healthy, we've been able to start and stay in person learning. And if you heard the students, we have had a really big turnout, record turnouts at all 3 homecoming dances, which you can just hear it, we could see it, I've seen it personally at all 3 the homecoming festivities and games, just really, really great participation and turnout. So we're grateful that we're doing all the right things to allow those things to happen. And I want to say thank you to our students, staff, and parents, caregivers, and visitors for continuing to work together to try to create the safest school environment we can during this challenging time. So Chair Dawson-Walton, that concludes my superintendent report this evening, and I'll entertain any questions or comments anyone has before we move on to our next agenda item.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody have any questions, comments?
I have one question.
Yeah.
Sorry. The vault test that families have access to, staff have access to that as well?
Yeah, yes, they do it. They work through our health offices to access those. So the staff, yes, have access to those. And we're hoping to really make the transition soon
I thought
to the
so.
new
Okay, thank you.
test.
Dr. Brooks?
Thank you for the report and all the work that you put into this. The only question I had, going back to the charts that you showed on staff and student positivity rates, I was wondering if you could maybe go into a little more detail on where we're filling up the most, if that's in elementary or in secondary, if it's in certain parts of the district, just, yeah, a little more detail there, since this is our sort of local data.
Yep, we do track every school every day, and we watch, we're actually watching for just general illness in whether it's COVID or not, and watching that 5% threshold as a tipping point to really look into what might be happening. And we've not had to really get to that. We haven't hit that number at any one of our schools right now. It's kind of ebbed and flowed. It's depending on the day. We've had some times where we're concerned about maybe a middle school or a high school. And then, as you know, we've had 3 elementaries where we've had to quarantine a classroom. I'm actually kind of, I hated really had to do any of those, but I was worried we'd have many more than 3. So we've done a really good job only having to have 3 kind of smaller outbreaks within a classroom at the elementary. So we track the numbers by school every day, and watch also the number of students in quarantine as well. So we have those details, so we know when we're getting close to that percentage of threshold. I think right now we've got a couple of our secondary schools we're watching, because we don't know the impact of any of our homecoming activities. We've had a large number of students together at events recently, so we haven't seen anything really show up from that, which is great news. But we probably got to give it another week or 2 to see if that holds up. So I know I continue to occasionally share a snapshot of that with the board, and it literally changes by the hour as our team enters in new data. So it's kind of ever changing, but know that that's a level of detail we're monitoring things.
Okay.
So you said the tests that we currently have in the schools, those are in the nurse's office, and students can get those if they go to the nurse's office with symptoms. That's what that set of tests is. And can you tell us, do you have a time frame available? Because I think, many parents and many people are looking for tests right now, and they're hard to come by. Do you have a sense of the time frame of when those are going to be available?
My COVID team would not love it if I put them on the spot, but we're really hoping for early in November, hopefully the first week of November, but it does depend on a little bit of some supply chain issues. We've placed the orders for the tests. We're waiting for them to arrive. So there's been some kind of delays in some of those things right now. So we're getting the system in place, and now Dave is here. You might correct me on that, but we're hoping if things come together as anticipated that we can get that in place by early November.
Okay. And so that will potentially come at the same time that the vaccine is available for kids 5 to 11.
Yeah,
So
hopefully,
we have a lot of things that are rapidly evolving with
yes,
this right
yeah.
now.
Yeah, we've all been hearing different estimates on when that vaccine might be made available, so I feel like I'm not sure when it's going to come. I've heard end of this month or into November, so I'm hopeful for the earlier by the end of this month. Which we're
And-
getting to that point, aren't we? So it's almost
Yeah.
end of October.
Things are kind of coming together, maybe, hopefully. And I just wanted to, maybe you can add more to this, but thank our nursing staff for really helping with sick kids. And, you posted the great infographic about making sure that we don't send kids sick to school. And I know this is like a really big cultural shift because we all said, suck it up with a cold and go, but the rules have changed on that. So just remind everybody, make sure you are healthy when you come to school. But maybe you can speak a little bit to how stretched our nurses are and how hard they are to hire right now and the heroic work they're doing to make sure kids are safe in school.
Well, I know locally for us, it's been a challenge, and across the metro, it's also been a challenge for health offices with the 40 districts that I'm in weekly contact with. I think it's a statewide challenge as well. So I would say our health, what we try to do is create, as best we can, conditions for them to be able to treat our students and minimize some of the paperwork and other things that come with all the flow that comes through the health office. And so they're really focusing most of their time on providing service. It's been challenging, and at the same time, they've done an amazing job. I'm proud of our numbers not getting worse, and we've really been able to keep that in a reasonable level. And I know it's because of the hard work of our staff in our health offices as I walk through the buildings and visit, and I check in. They're just doing everything they can every given day to give great care to our students and also their families who have lots of questions sometimes too, and maybe their families are wrestling with illness as well. So it's not always just the students, it's how to support a family and what they might be going through, and sometimes that's across multiple buildings in our system. So that kind of coordination has been amazing. So I'm really proud of our health office staff.
Okay, thank you, and thank you to our COVID team for working through this unprecedented situation.
And if things do come together, when they do, we'll be communicating about that. We're ready to go as soon as we're able to activate. I know our team's meeting on a daily basis, and we are ready as soon as we can get all the supplies and get because basically we have to outfit every school with that testing system at each site. So for those who want to take advantage of it.
Thank you.
I have some additional questions on that thread. So seeing the the symptomatic numbers versus the positivity rates, it looks like it's roughly 5 to 1 in terms of symptomatic versus actual positives. When I looked at, maybe we don't have the slides in front of us, so I took some notes, so hopefully that's correct. So with the number of kids showing symptomatic cases, those are typical cold cases, and I know that there's been many illnesses. So when those kids come into the nurse's office, is there number one, is the total number of sick kids up versus previous years? And is that causing impact on the ability to service our students with our nurses and stretching them, or is there a COVID reporting component of that? Okay, just help me sort through that, the COVID reporting, the symptomatic cases versus general illness that would, in a non-COVID environment, be general sickness.
I'm going to ask Dave to step over, maybe Kate too, because as they're walking up, I would tell you, I don't have the numbers in front of me as far as how does it look to maybe like 2019. Sorry, thinking into my mic. Dave might have a better sense for that, but you're right. We are seeing, a variety of. We've all been told the flu season is going to be challenging because we really didn't have much of a flu season last year. RSV is up as well. I know Kate, you're talking regularly with our nurse team, and Dave, I don't know if you want to add anything to that.
Yeah, I think when we obviously look at the potential COVID symptoms, COVID could be a lot of different things, and so I do think that there is more sensitivities when we talk about symptoms such as a runny nose or a cough where there may not have been, eyes on it as much or risen to the level of maybe it needs to go to the nurse. But since those are potential COVID symptoms, I definitely see that we're having more students going to the nurse for an evaluation and potentially being sent home because they have those potential COVID symptoms. So I do believe that we're seeing numbers up just because of how common some of those symptoms are, for sure.
Okay, thanks. That's helpful context. And then, so looking at, I think it was in the last 7 days, 57 positive cases across the district. So of 20,000 students, that's a third of a percentage. So if we were looking back to the grid, we have the two pieces, it's our internal data, that's on the very low green part, but because the case rates at the district, at the cities and the county is in the red, we continue to use the external environment as the primary decision-making component.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep, because, again, the public health has not said, here's what you can use from a case rate in your own district to make decisions between low, moderate, substantial, or high. They've really trusted that the CDC framework and the public health officials that designed that's the reliable tool to use.
So we've now got many weeks, well, not many, but several, September and October under our belt. Different districts across the state and in different counties have implemented different models. Will we be benchmarking any information as far as their case rate data relative to ours based on potentially different decisions and models?
Potentially we could. We got to account for differences. And we know that it's still, we still see big disparities, racial disparities in the case rates across the county. The county continues to share with us it's disproportionately impacting families and people of color. And so we're a much more diverse district than others we might benchmark against. But if we can find some comparables that I think are close enough apples to apples. I do know amongst our AMSD districts, the vast majority right now are fully masking, not all of them, but the majority have gotten to that point because of the increases we saw here in the last 8 weeks. So some districts started with at a certain age level and then had to change or shift more towards full masking right now than anything else. But I think that's a good idea. I think we can definitely see who would be good comparable districts for us and just see what that tells us.
It would be helpful to see if other districts that made different decisions are seeing more negative results, especially if it's masking versus not masking. I think that's important to be informed on some of that, but recognizing the unique differences for sure.
My observation and based on conversations with our team and with public health is I believe the masking has helped keep our numbers where they're at and not worse, and allows us to not have to quarantine more classrooms or worse, and really has a lot. I know it's an inconvenience for all of us, but it has allowed us to pretty much function, with a normal kind of schedule and routine, and I think we're all hopeful for that point where we can get away from it, and maybe to Director Grady's point, as soon as some of these other mitigation efforts tend to get some traction and we see some higher vaccine and things like that, some of these case rates will get down to that level where we can get away from the mask requirement. We'll see, everything's kind of evolving pretty quickly. I think by the next month even, we're going to know a lot more about the timing of some things.
Yep. And then looking at the chart data, kind of the peaks and valleys over time, so this bump up in October is not reaching the level of the past peaks. Is there any additional information coming on kind of where we think we're at in that peak?
Yeah, we saw some data this week on the school nurse meeting, a state school nurse meeting, that our case rates this fall compared to last fall are significantly higher as far as what, we didn't know what we were going to find out last fall as we entered the school year. So this is shared positive case numbers. If you overlay this year to last year, they have a graphic where it represents the significant higher level of numbers, but we're also much more adept at mitigating now too than what we knew a year ago. So that was an interesting set of data that they provided the districts this past, I think, last week.
Okay. One last question. So there's definitely, I have two questions. There's been some question around the permission for testing, and so you highlighted that it's with permission. How does that permission model look like? Is it that maybe a student has maybe a symptom and then you call home, or how does that permission process work?
We haven't finalized that part yet,
Okay.
so I'm a little reluctant to.
Okay,
we're still working with Tim from a legal perspective.
Yep.
We want to make sure we give parents the full, fully informed decision opportunity with that. So we're working on the final steps for it. it'll be ready though by the time we get our supplies in.
Okay, understood, thank you. Then last question. So there's a lot of feedback and interest in ensuring that families who needed exceptions had the exceptions they needed. Has that process gone well? Have you heard any concerns that seem to be working for families?
I have not heard many concerns at all. I think we have about 50 or 60 exemptions in the whole district.
Okay.
So it's a relatively small number. And my understanding, I'm looking at some head nods on my team there, though that process has worked when it's been requested.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for answering all my questions.
Thank you so much. I think everybody kind of said it. I mean, the team, I mean, it's been a lot, and it's a lot to navigate, and things keep changing. And then also kind of balancing that with allowing our students to really have that experience of being in school, and just listening tonight, and just from my own kids, just the excitement for homecoming. And so I just really appreciate our district's effort in allowing and having our students really be able to participate in that way. So, all right, thank you. Next agenda item is school board committee reports. I will start with Director Simons. Do you have a committee report or update?
Yes, I have a few. Let me get these pulled up. Okay, so we had, let me start with CETA on, I think it was October 6th. Nope, hold on. It was our 6th meeting, October 7th. So for those that may not know, there's an advisory council for the Center for Innovations in the Arts, CETA. And this is several different communities with representatives from city councils, and we have our staff on it as well from finance and operations, and I participate in the meetings as well as a school board member. And so this is the North Hennepin College work to develop a Center for the Innovations in the Arts. So they've been looking at developing a new facility, and our interest in that facility has been the possibility of utilizing facilities for potential future arts programming. So whether that's performing arts or other arts. So we've continued to observe that and that work. So this has been something that requires funding from the legislature and as well as for the private sector. The really kind of interesting thing, it was also somewhat dependent on the light rail coming through near that area. And kind of the whole kind of planning and development around that. So we had a lot of updates as far as the light rail, the project, and so forth. But the neat thing that I observed in this last meeting was the more proactive decision to say from the college side that they were going to move forward with designing the program itself before you need a building. So designing an amazing, incredible program that would then create the pull and the draw for the building. And I really liked that approach, that why wait for a building? And I think that's something as we think about our work, and I think that we do in this district too, like how can we build the program that's gonna pull the draw and pull the interest, and then buildings can come. So that was a really, I thought that was unique and something I hadn't heard before in that committee. So that was the CETA meeting. And then we had ECMAC just yesterday. So ECMAC is the Enrollment and Capacity Management Advisory Committee. And so this is, I believe, our second meeting of this school year, and continued in some of the updates from the prior work, because last year there really was a high volume of information and work that was done. So as we've had some new members come on and we are resetting this year, we continue to kind of do a little bit of an annual event for the Night Out is going to be taking place in February, so start getting excited for that. And we always do a collection of silent auction items and different items related to setting up that event. So start thinking about it now.
Is it in person this year?
At the planning committee.
It is?
Yeah, it is. Okay.
Yeah.
So the planning committee is coming together, so
Nice.
yeah, that is all.
All right, thank you. Director Mosqueda-Jones.
My one report is from District 287. So back to my notes here. 287 just is working on security and safety review after a few events from the stress of what's going on. And as a result of that review, we made a calendar adjustment for an additional staff development day for staff in order to have additional training for de-escalation, trauma-informed, safety type training. 287 utilizes more of a safety coach model than SROs, and we had a discussion on metal detectors and the studies and the research around that. And then we had quite a discussion around the search profile for the superintendent that we are looking to hire for next school year. Several groups were gathered together to ask questions about what they want to see in a superintendent, everything from student voice to every community voice to community stakeholders like 279 and other districts. And everything from, can you make our lunches better? Asking that question to the superintendent to, fiscal responsibility, et cetera. So it was an interesting, engaging conversation. I think the profile is just about finalized and should be up on the 287 website. That's it.
Thank you. Director Brooks.
I have one report. So DPAC started back up yesterday. So the District Planning Advisory Council here in this room. This was the very first meeting. So it was mostly an orientation by Jeremy Woolley. But they did break out into separate groups and started to do sort of some brainstorming around some areas of interest. So yeah, we'll see where that goes, but yeah, one meeting down, and that's where we are. That's it.
Dr. Grady.
Okay, I had my first OSSEO negotiations team meeting. It was my first meeting, not their first meeting. It was Wednesday, October 6th. This meeting was 4 hours, and I just wanted to say thank you to all that are involved for their time and commitment to the best outcomes for all of our staff and our scholars. My second report is the school board meeting, the policy committee report as of October 5th. We met at the ESC at 4:30 on Tuesday, October 5th. Board members Thomas Brooks, myself, and Tanya Simons were in attendance. Also, Superintendent Corey Mcintyre, Assistant Superintendent Michael Lehan, and General Counsel Tim Palmetier. During the meeting, the committee reviewed proposed revisions to Policy 102, which is Equal Educational and Employment Opportunity, and Policy 413, which is Prohibition Against Discrimination, Harassment, and Violence, and Policy 514, the Bullying and Hazing Prohibition. The committee discussed the administration's recommendation that Policies 102 and 413 be combined under a rewritten version of Policy 102 and recommendations for minor revisions and formatting changes for the rewritten policy. The committee also discussed Policy 514 and the administration's recommendation for minor revisions and formatting changes to this policy. As a result of the meeting, Policies 102, 413, and 514 were moved forward for the first reading later at tonight's meeting. The next policy committee meeting is scheduled to be held on Tuesday, December 7th at 4:30 p.m. here in the Educational Services Center. Policy committee meetings are open to the public, and community members are encouraged to attend. Thank you.
All right, thank you. At this time, I do not have a committee report or update. Our presentation this evening is 279 Comprehensive Services and Supports Cultivating Wellness, shared by Assistant Superintendent of Equity and Achievement, Michael Lehan, Director of Student Services, Kate Emmons, and District Level Principal, Amy Janisic.
Dramatic entrance.
Superintendent McIntyre, did you have, I wasn't sure if you had any
No,
comments.
go right
Okay,
ahead. I was just
perfect.
filling time as you walked in.
Well, you know, that's kind. Thank you. Good evening, board members, Superintendent McIntyre, audience, and viewing audience. As we lean into conversations around neurodiversity, mental and behavioral health, I feel that it's essential that we pause and contextualize our experience, to pause and acknowledge that we, as a community, have experienced so much in the last 18 months. We've lost loved ones, experienced homelessness, food and other insecurities, racial marginalization, violence, polarizing images on social media. Each of us have been impacted in some way. I offer these truths as grounding for this conversation. What I have shared is trauma. And what we know about trauma is that it manifests differently for each of us. Depression, anxiety, two aspects of mental health that are very visible and present throughout our state as well as our community. As we center our scholars, good mental health is critical to success in school and in life. Research demonstrates that students who receive social, emotional, and mental and behavioral health support achieve better academically. So then, who is responsible? We are. As a collective, we are. We must pause, seek first to understand while centering the human experience, and hold space with radical empathy. I celebrate Dr. Bart Becker, the proud principal of Maple Grove Senior High School. After he completes his announcements over the loudspeaker, he states, "I love you," to his scholars. Why do I share this with you? Well, it's because with love comes care, with care comes compassion, with compassion comes protection, safety. The well-being of our scholars is our work and is central to our identities as educators, as family members, and as community members. To our families across each zip code, you are loved. To the multiple identities enriching our school system, you are loved. To our scholars who just celebrated National Coming Out Day and took the brave step in living a more complete self, you are loved. To our cabinet, Superintendent McIntyre, board members, you are loved. To our courageous scholars, gracing our classrooms, to our courageous educators, gracing our classrooms, offices, hallways, health offices, buses, you are loved. To our brilliant and courageous scholars, you are so very loved. We are stronger together, and each of us carries the responsibility to heal and repair. Communal healing takes personal sacrifice. We must value the humanity around us and see the humanity with empathy. In essence, collectivism over individualism. We must do so with integrity, with accurate information, and understanding who needs to be made aware when trust is fractured. As we engage in this presentation, I urge us to think about how we, in our roles as parents, scholars, educators, and community members, what is our scope of influence? How might we help promote radical healing? Who are we having conversations with, and what is the context of those conversations? We are stronger together, and it takes each of us to heal the communities that we occupy so that we can live out our mission to inspire and prepare each and every scholar with the confidence, courage, competence to achieve their dreams, contribute to the community, and engage in a lifetime of learning. There's a lot of emotion. There's a lot of hurt, pain, frustration, but there's also joy, celebrations, and a brighter tomorrow ahead. Hear this as I acknowledge that we are on a journey, but also hear we can go further together. And I offer those words because we have seen so much, as I alluded to, in our communities over the last 18 months. We've experiencing so much on a day-to-day basis with our scope of our fear of influence, our social context, and so forth. And we need to make sure that we're coming together and relaying accurate and timely information, because that is the only way that collectively we'll be able to get through these trying times, because they're not over yet. So the outcome of this presentation is that the district that will share kind of our comprehensive supports that we have for our scholars and staff and our wellness delivery model. Our current supports that are being offered to our scholars, and how we are teaching and reteaching some of our behavior expectations so that we can achieve our mission. At this time, I welcome Amy Janicek to the podium to share a bit more.
Thank you, Michael. I appreciate that framing as we really think about all of the different supports and also all the different ways that our students are coming to us and our scholars are showing up each and every day. And so with that, one of the pieces that we have in place here, as we know, is our really strong PBIS program here in Osseo area schools. And as you know, these are the core features which we have shared with board members in the past in our community. And what we want you to really think about is that these are not just individual actions, but it is the collective whole of all of these pieces together and combined that really help to set a strong foundation. It is practices that we put in place each and every day so that each one of our scholars is feeling welcome and safe into their learning communities. And this really does provide an expectation, a solid foundation of expectations. So when we talk about reteaching and reestablishing our norms, especially as we kind of restart what a traditional school year again, this is where we fall back on. We fall back on our practices around PBIS. And additionally, this is a district expectation that each site has these core features in place.
So as we think about what we are building upon, yes, we're building upon PBIS, but what are we seeing now with our families and our students? Not every student and family is experiencing this. We know some may be experiencing some, all may be experiencing one or two. And so as a district, we have services in place to address the student and family needs that we're seeing. How do we know this? We did pulse surveys across the last few months of the school. We have counselors, psychs, social workers, teachers, families that are telling us this. What are some of the needs? They need, as you heard, to feel safe. They need to feel connected. They need some ongoing mental health support. So as a district, when Michael was saying that who is responsible, we look to us for that.
So one of the ways that we hold ourselves accountable is we ask each site to measure their impact and measure the implementation of fidelity through something called the Tiered Fidelity Inventory. So it's really a wonderful tool that every site is able to put in place to say, what are the strengths of what our site team is doing and what are areas to improve upon? We know that it is, again, a collection of all of our features within our PBIS system that make a difference.
And now let's take a look at some of the supports that we provide in the school district. Some of these are from our general funds, some are from the additional ESSER funds that we have, that have been made available to us. All schools have social work support. They have social work support to address the needs of students with disabilities. They have social work support to support the students who do not have special needs. So every student in the district has access to social work support should they need it. School counselors, we're a unique district. We offer counseling services to every scholar in our district, starting with our elementary all the way through. So school counselors support all students in the areas of academic, social, emotional, and post-secondary career development. If a student needs access to a counselor, it's available to them. We have school-linked mental health supports. This is through the grants and also through some additional funds that the board has approved so that every student or scholar in our system has access to school-linked mental health. Now there is, you talked about nursing and how that was a problem getting hired. The same thing is true for school-linked mental health supports. However, teletherapy is available to any student who requires it. There are some sites that have on-site supports, And if there's more needed, Lee Carlson has made a commitment to make teletherapy available. And you can see we also have St. David's and People's Incorporated in our system. We have student assistance counselors. Their main goal is to work with students who are struggling with chemicals. So they are at our secondary sites, and then we have availability for a student assistance counselor to assist at any site in which a student or scholar, I'll get it one of these days, is needing that type of support. We have a homeless liaison. You've had the opportunity to hear from Chrissy Zolist. Her name has changed, Chrissy Zolist. She's very passionate about her work, and she has worked tirelessly to identify students and families in need and then get them the supports that they need. She has worked to get, transportation is a huge need for students and families experiencing homelessness, and so she has worked to get other ways to support that transportation need, and you can see that there. And then also some other kinds of supports. There's foods, school supplies, devices, and so on, tutoring, community resources. Our current count as of today is 275 students that are experiencing homelessness in our system.
We also have other needs that have not been mentioned that might be just very unique or might be only during a certain period of time for a scholar. So things such as growing through grief groups, if students are experiencing death within their immediate family or extended family and they've been impacted and just have that need. So I'm not going to go through each one of these lists, but you can see some of the different unique services that we also extend what is available just based on the need. And this may be for a smaller number of students, but certainly we want to make sure that we're providing those supports. And then also, just to turn you to our website for those people that are listening and watching our meeting this evening, is if you're able to go onto our website under Community Resources, and you can see that there's some additional family supports that are offered as well. So we want to know, or we want to just extend some of those opportunities and ideas for our families. At this time, I'm going to introduce a few of our sites who have come to share. So as we talk about different supports in our PBAS and what that looks like on a very practical level of our scholars returning to school, we thought it was really important from you to hear from some of our site leaders to see what does it sound like. So I want to introduce Kristen Hauge, who is our leader of our OALC and 279 Online. And then we also have Bill Kundig, who is from Oakview Elementary School.
So, good evening, Superintendent McIntyre and Board. I'm Kristen Hauge, Principal of OALC and 279 Online, and then with me tonight, I also have APs Ryan Bisson, Ben Carls, and Michelle Moncombe. So, when our leadership team began planning this summer, we sat in the space of how to run 4 schools, 1 already established and 3 brand new, with a shared vision that was scholar-centered and supportive of our system's strategic plan. We looked at our stakeholder data from incoming parents, scholars, and teachers, and one of the common themes that was that they were choosing the OALC or 279 Online because our collective sites are able to meet their needs in ways that traditional brick and mortars cannot. Though we are a K-12 school that's online and a 9-12 area learning center, we are Osseo area schools, and our planning process this summer focused on how our 4 sites can use District 279 tools, policies, and best practices to transform the educational experience for our District 279 scholars by redesigning and redefining what the educational experience means. We began by recognizing that we were not going to try to recreate the in-person experience for our new schools, but look at what was working well and building upon that foundation. As such, we focused on the OALC and its successes with the PBIS program as a PBIS exemplar school, asking ourselves, how are the best practices and results of the OALC aligned with our stakeholders' values and wishes for 279 Online?
The OALC was established as a District 279 school in the year 2000 and began implementing PBIS along with the district. 5 years ago, OALC staff leaned into the PBIS systems to change our climate and culture to better support our scholars in our school and saw results in our behavior and achievement data, as reported on our SIP that year and in subsequent ones. As explained previously, a core feature of PBIS is 3 to 5 positively stated expectations that are taught and reinforced school-wide. At OALC, these statements are our DEN expectations. Demonstrate appropriate behavior, engage in our education, and navigate our environment. Though previously established, after an 18-month disruption due to COVID, we have been focused on reestablishing the culture and climate, our Tier 1 in PBIS speak, for both scholars and staff, and also had 9 hours of professional development on trauma-informed practices this fall. Staff have been reinforcing and reintroducing scholars to what it means to be at the OALC. We revisited our entire MTSS system and corresponding data during workshop week as a staff, and reteach our expectations in each of the classes each grading period, which is every 3 weeks. As with any PBIS school, the expectation is that behavior and engagement conversations use DEN language. We collect data, provide additional Tier 2 supports, many of which you will hear earlier, many of which you heard earlier in the presentation, and celebrate our successes.
District work is our work in the OALC and in 279 Online. The visions and values of our new 279 Online stakeholders, represented in the word cloud on this slide, overlap with OALC's PBIS deliverables and Superintendent McIntyre's strategic vision for our district's mission and work. In our 4 sites, we provide personalized, innovative instruction, intentional and inclusive learning spaces where scholars' identities and dreams are supported, and opportunities to support the whole learner and their families as active partners in our school community. Often within our school communications and community messages, our scholars, families, and caregivers hear that traditional and in-person learning is what's best for our scholars. However, as our school system and world continue to navigate dual pandemics of COVID and systemic racism, we are hearing from our stakeholders about the opportunities and desire for innovative programming that our 4 schools can and do provide. We learned what worked online, what allowed our scholars to go deeper in their digital space, and what they wanted to experience as they learned to think more critically about the world in which they live and navigate. From these learnings, some of the questions we continue to ask ourselves are, how are we leveraging District 279 tools, policies, and best practices to redefine how scholars experience education? And how can we partner with our scholars and families in these innovative models to meet their needs at the same time?
We are using the same DEN language in 279 Online, but these pillars look and feel different in the online context. Therefore, as a new District 279 K-12 school, the TFI Tiered Fidelity Inventory guides our work building our PBIS system. The TFI led us to intentionally focus on gathering stakeholder feedback on the DEN expectations in 279 Online, having teachers and scholars provide input, creating the PBIS matrix, and using these ideas to drive our community building initiatives in our online environment. The traditional reward system is less present than scholars working as partners in building our online community school. Some of the highlights of how this has looked so far include scholars using exploratory time on our Wednesday bonus block to follow their passions and provide their input into what sorts of exploratories they'd like to have. Creating unique K-12 opportunities for our Spanish-speaking and Hmong scholars to learn more about the language and culture by partnering with their classmates and our instructors. Our Hmong and LGBTQ+ scholars sharing they feel more confident and comfortable being their authentic selves because of the intentional culture and climate work our teachers and staff are committed to.
As you've heard, our sites have been intentional in bridging the vision with reality. We would like to end our portion by sharing one example of a scholar's engagement with our DEN expectations of engaging in their education and navigating our environment to create positive changes in our communities. As Auntie Anna reflected in her artist statement for this painting shared on the screen, that she created as a summative in her Exploring Art and Media class, my painting was a story of love through time. Things around them change, but they stay the same, and I try to keep the same mindset when it comes to certain things. Never change, stay true to yourself.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Bill Kundig. I am a member of the leadership team at Oakview Elementary School, and I serve as principal. On behalf of the about 80 people that choose to come to work at this school every single day and uphold the expectations I'm going to talk to you about in a minute, just want to say thank you for listening to me talk to you a little bit about how we establish school-wide expectations at our school to make sure that not just our scholars, but our family members and our community members all buy in and understand what it means to be a Husky each and every day. I also wanted to say a very special thank you to my leadership team, my building leadership team, as well as the work of our late counselor, David Warner. He was a champion of this work, and so we know that his is a lasting impact on what we do with PBIS. So when you come to school each day at Oakview, you need to understand that we have 4 expectations. We want you to be safe. We want you to be respectful. We want you to be responsible, because we want to make sure that every single person, I don't care if you're 4 years old to 104 years old, but you need to know that you belong, okay? Now, to do that well, we pretty much just have to weave those 4 things into everything we do. So let's talk about that. So teaching expectations happens every single day, over and over throughout the day. And what I coach my teachers to remember is that let's just pretend for a second that our students have forgotten everything that we taught them the previous day about those 4 expectations and teach it brand new again. Because we can't share enough what those expectations mean, because when students are able to honor those expectations, we can do amazing things in the classroom and around the school. So that actually takes place before the school year starts. We send home expectation tour videos in August on the different places in our building, like the bathrooms and the cafeterias and the hallways and the classroom spaces, so we can show families and scholars what it means to be safe, respectful, responsible, and help one another to belong in those spaces before they walk into those spaces. Now, once we get them in the building, we've got a whole slew of things what we like to do. So we have visuals throughout the building in multiple languages. We have matrices that explains what it means to be safe, respectful, responsible, and help one another to belong no matter where you are in the school. And we want scholars to see those things and family members too, because that is an intersection with our racial equity work around access and opportunity. We also have expectation tours that take place in the school in the first weeks of school to make sure that if they haven't watched those videos and sat and understood those videos, we teach them in the spaces where they're going to operate. We have a news program every single day called OVTV, where we mention being safe, respectful, responsible, and helping one another to belong. You're probably wondering why I'm saying this over and over, but this is what we do at school to help kids understand. So that is in a daily message that I record for students. We also have other things like door poster challenges, where they get to color in each letter of those 4 words when they're caught in the act of doing one of those great things. We use a system of on-track tickets that helps reinforce in that moment students that are doing great things throughout the day. We have assemblies that are streamed through YouTube to families and to all the classrooms in the school, because we're not yet gathering in one space. And we reinforce all of those, being safe, respectful, responsible, and helping one another belong. Throughout, we do raffles and all sorts of prizes and challenges throughout the year. When we think about reteaching expectations, because that really kind of gets us a whole school approach, but sometimes some students need just a little bit more, and that's where we get into a teams-based approach. We do lots of goal-setting work with individual students or groups of students. We use our resources like PBIS World, which is one that's been around for a while. We're also getting into IM4, which is a newer tool that we're using in our problem-solving team and other groups to help to respond to how students are operating in the school. And the goal is always for them just to get back to that reinforcement of understanding what it means to be safe, respectful, responsible, and to help one another belong. I really can't do the work of the 80 people that I work alongside justice, and so I would just invite you all, if you'd like, to come to the school and see it for yourselves. I think you get a really good understanding of that. But in case you aren't able to make it soon, if you click on the Husky logo on that slide or the one before, I've created a hyperdoc of videos that show our OVTV shows, our expectation videos, our assembly videos. Please check that out, especially if you're considering coming to the school, because I want to make sure you know what you're getting yourselves into before you arrive. So with that all being said, this is a little bit of what we do to teach and reinforce the expectations around being safe, respectful, responsible, and helping one another belong at Oakview.
And really good jokes. So if you're looking for a good joke, you've got to watch
Really,
the videos.
really good jokes.
Okay.
Principal Kundig, it's great to see that your enthusiasm has not waned since our time together at Osseo Senior High School. And truly, you should log on and watch his shows, whether he's in a bunny outfit, a turkey outfit, there's pie, a lot of different things happen.
There's a lot of explanation.
There's a lot happening. As we close, just really wanted to share, and certainly thank my colleagues for sharing their work. And it's a heavy lift, right? Coming back to school and reteaching expectations, and also studying this notion of this arc of trauma and how it manifests, how it shows up. So the work that they're doing diligently to try to find out how we meet the scholars' need to make sure that we can accelerate their brilliance and bring about the inherent unique realities that each of them bring to the table. So the key takeaways are simply this, that we continue to invest in our community. Hopefully we're able to see, whether it be ESSER funds and how we're resourcing our staff, our true investment into our community. And the fact that we continue to respond to emerging needs. We know what we know right now. As Superintendent Mcintyre will say, is that when we know better, we'll do better. And that's the continuation, that progress monitoring and this notion of continuous improvement. That's our journey, and that's what we're on. Wellness is a process. It's not a destination. And that goes back to our opening of this presentation, this notion that we need to be in relationship with one another, that we need to take time and hold space for one another, and so that we bring about some more diverse understanding and be responsive in a more profound and empathetic way. Relationships and partnerships are critical. That's how we do our work, and that's how we'll succeed collectively. At this time, I invite you to ask any questions you may have to any of my colleagues that presented here tonight.
All right, thank you so much. I will open it up to anybody have any questions or comments. I'll start with you, Director Grady.
Thank you, everyone, for the presentation. I really appreciate your commitment to all of our scholars' well-being. I was wondering if you could speak a little bit about the experiences that our children are coming to school with in terms of the trauma, and then connect that to how that plays out in the classroom and in their social and emotional behavior.
We're fighting over it.
I think what scholars are coming with are really varied, and it's hard to identify one thing. I mean, when we talk about all the different supports, they're in place because students are coming with all those different kinds of traumas. And even from week to week, sometimes that can shift with what a student is experiencing on the morning that they show up at school, and that might be different 2 weeks from now. So what I really appreciate is how responsive our school staff are into tending to the needs, and at any given moment being able to address the needs of what our scholars are coming to it. And can you repeat your second question?
Oh, I don't remember. Well,
Okay.
I was thinking, how does the trauma play out in the classroom?
I think
Or hallways or the lunchroom?
Sure, I think, trauma shows up in a lot of different ways, and for some students, they tend to go inward, and they may be disconnected and be really maybe more quiet or disengaged, which means they're not engaging with whatever the content of learning is happening. And for other scholars, that can become more emotional, and it comes through more explosive tears, or it can come through more explosive behaviors as well. So we see a continuum of all types of these behaviors that are showing up on what could be maybe a more milder scale more frequently, and that still is an indicator to staff to say this student is showing needs, or it could be something that is really, explosive in the moment. And that looks differently if it's a kindergartner versus if it's, a senior in high school. So we are seeing these, and again, I just want to reiterate that our staff is doing a really, really amazing job responding to the needs of our scholars.
Okay, and what ways, thank you.
Yeah, I can answer.
Okay.
This is not my thing, talking in front of people, but, so I would say that what Amy said is absolutely true, and then also that's where we really lean on, that's kind of where the whole PBIS process, and where we're leaning on teaching and reteaching those tier 1 classroom expectations, not only to scholars, but to staff as to what their expectations are, so that then we do, when we are recognizing something, trauma or anything happening, that we're not supposed to be managing in the classroom, and we have all these other supports that were brought up here, that then we're following the tier 2 and tier 3 referrals, and so having really strong referral processes and our SIT teams and leaning into those district-provided supports so that we get the scholars the right supports at the right time.
Okay. And then just a follow-up, how can parents help with both their individual scholars, but also with the school environment?
Thanks, team. We really like to see parents as partners. And so when, when our, part of it is that our sites are sharing out expectations with families in many different ways. So if they are able to use similar language that they might be hearing in the schools in our home life, that is really beneficial, as well as if a school is reaching out to say, hey, here are some things that we're observing. What are the ways that we can partner together with families? And we need families' input as well, because what we see in the school setting may not always be happening in the community or at home. And so all of that information and collaboration together is really, really critical. So, and if families are seeing things at home that they have concerns about, to be reaching out to school staff to say, I have concerns, because oftentimes eventually some of those same behaviors that families might be seeing at home will kind of trickle into school. So that communication is really critical, and that partnership, and then also as we communicate out what our PBAS expectations are, how families can also reiterate those same languages at home.
Thank you.
Okay, Director Brooks.
Well, you took all the questions. You did actually take my questions, but I do have one maybe somewhat similar question. And this is actually just following yesterday's DPAC meeting. So I just wanted to lean in a little more on the screening that happens, or how we sort of get at what sort of issues may be happening at home, even without those sort of violent outbursts. So I know we have like the SEL curriculum that's being piloted. And I know we're continuing to place a higher emphasis on mental health. And so just wondering, the example that came up yesterday was divorce and separation, which I know is so common. And then you also listed grief as one of the supports. And so just wondering if we have anything in place that sort of screens for that. Yes, because we want to prevent some of those sort of more violent outbursts, but also, academically, we can kind of get ahead of it or give some space, that type of thing as well, I think. So just wanting some more kind of information on that.
We do both formal and informal screening in our system. We have a system called Sabers, which screens across the board for every student. Some of our counseling staff also do a screening of the students at their schools and get information that way. So those are the ways that information comes to our mental health teams or our student assistance teams. Our student assistance teams also meet at every school. So they call it something else, like a human something, HST. I can tell you the acronyms, I don't know what they mean. There's an HST, there's a SIT, there's a SAT. But the intent is a group of people to get around a table and talk about students that have kind of risen to a level of worry, is maybe the best way to say that. And so then they dive deep for that particular scholar to see what they know about the student, what they need to know about the student, and see what other supports that they can provide. If it tends to be more than what a typical student, typical is a wide range, let me just be clear. It's a continuum of needs. But then we also have a special education process that the SIT team, SIT, SAT, HST would refer to a child study team for further in-depth assessment to determine if that's a student who might need some very specially designed instruction in that area.
So I'm going to step in again because
Please do.
I have a really cool, so what she was just referring to was our tier 2 supports that I was trying to reference before. But I also want to just highlight one of our 279 online PLTs is actually one of our teachers is one of our pilot teachers for the social emotional program. So what they are doing as their team is that they're looking at scholar engagement and they're using some of the social emotional criteria kind of as a tier 1 support throughout their PLT process, and really working to try to engage and identify some of those scholars too, in addition to our normal tier 1 and tier 2 processes. So I wanted to share that one because it's cool.
Thank you. I also just wanted to comment. I was actually pretty happy that Oakview was included in this because there's a lot of Oakview pride in my house, and it's because of a lot of the reasons that were listed here in the presentation today. And I don't know how you're capturing the same sort of spirit of the assemblies that you get when you're in that gym, but it's, I mean, as a parent, it's actually a super cool thing to watch, and I've actually gotten a little emotional a couple times, so just to see the kids so excited, especially about the on-track tickets, and to hear the things that are the songs and the, I don't know what you call them, the chants, just all the different things that they are so excited about and are so ingrained in their brains. It's a really cool thing to see. So it's been a while since I've been at an assembly, but that's always the example that comes to my mind when I think of a good PBIS model and activities to go along with it. So just want to say great work. Thank you to everyone for the presentation today and continuing to make this a focus for our scholars.
Director Mosqueda-Jones.
So, Bill, I'm hoping you can give me the quick elevator speech on what IM4 is.
So when we collect screening data on students and we start to notice students exhibiting behaviors that seem unexpected, we don't always possess the interventions at the fingertips. And so a program like IM4 is a tool that we can access. We can, it's like a database of strategies. And so we're able to use that and really better understand, once we understand who the student is and really get to know what it is they're communicating to us through their behaviors. And when we understand their story better, we're able to match an intervention to their specific situation, what they're experiencing, with some really specific targets in mind. And then it really becomes around data collection. So, as you know, an intervention is instructed. So when we're replacing a behavior with another behavior, we're making sure that it's instructed first. So we teach the young person what the replacement behavior is or the intervention is. And then we monitor it over a period of 6 to 8 weeks. So we understand that things take time. And sometimes it doesn't feel like that's our friend, but we understand that it does take a certain amount of time to change habits and change behaviors. So IM4 is a tool that our teams would access when we're seeing students kind of bubble up beyond what the whole school is receiving, and when more intensive supports are needed, and when our teams want to look at what's most current, we look to things like IM4.
Is that geared for certain age levels? K-12?
That would be K-12.
Okay,
And that comes out of the work of Dr. Clay Cook from the University of Minnesota.
perfect, thank you.
We're working in partnership with the youth on that.
And then, so is that organized by, I'm sorry? I meant that tool itself. Does it have organization by internalizing, externalizing types of behavior, or is it just one big?
It's the type of behavior and then there's different, yeah.
That's what I assumed. Thank you. I appreciate that. I would like to use that instead of my own head. That would be nice. I have a question. I have visited Oakview. It's right by my house, so it's a lot of fun. My question for anyone at 279 online is, let's say I want to do a site visit for 279 online. How does that work? who do I talk to? Is it different people for different levels?
Nope, so we really approach our leadership as a team. We have 4 sites, and the 4 of us just really are, we approach it. You heard our student rep say she has 3 new APs, and I was like, well, kind of, but we split our time. But we all have, each of our teachers have unique codes. We can work on helping we haven't actually talked about it, but we would probably want to help you get into the classes, but we can access any of the classes same as we would walk around, any other building to do a school visit.
Perfect. And then how do students access a lot of the resources that we talked in the online environment? Do you have like
Right. Yeah, so actually, and I might be wrong, Kate, you can correct me, but I think that our sites, both OALC and 279 Online, are the first ones to begin using the teletherapy, partially because of that. But really what happens is in our SIT teams, our SST teams, our child study teams, and our HST teams, that we look at what the resource is, and then we have the communications through the counselor, the social worker, the whoever reaching out to the individual students. And then, because it's really hard to pull a kid in the hallway, because we don't have hallways, a lot of times it's just kind of going after, okay, so I know that you showed up in this class, so I'm going to show up to the next class, I'm going to talk to the teacher, I'm going to pull into a breakout room, I need you to join me in this room, that type of thing.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it's a little harder than just grabbing them in the hallway, but we do have their schedules, and we know where each kid's supposed to be at each time.
And I think I recall you had a virtual resource room.
So the virtual calming room is something that was created by our OALC counselor
Right.
many years ago.
Yep.
Yeah, and the popularity has grown exponentially since COVID, and it's being used across multiple different sites in the district and in other districts as well. So it's linked on a lot of our Schoology banners, Seesaw banners and stuff, and we also use it as not an intervention, but as an opportunity for, when a scholar is having a behavior, counselors are teaching and using, here's how you access that calming room. Also creating specific clickable schedules, links, here's something that's happening. And so we're doing a lot of teaching of scholars in terms of here's where I go and how to access that, because I can't just walk down the hall to it.
Absolutely. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Here's where I'm going to put in my shameless plug, board members, for building visits. We put out a calendar and schedule, so please join me when you can. I know you got busy lives, but I would love for you to join me in visiting these buildings and many others. And it's kind of spread out into the winter months. I think we tried to spread that out pretty well, so.
Yeah, I was just really excited because I'm a teacher, and so that might be something I could actually do on my prep time.
Right. Without going anywhere.
Good?
Yep.
Dr. Steinman?
Thank you so much for this presentation, and as the student school board reps mentioned, kind of the return to normal and the need for continued mental health supports. I think this is very timely discussion, especially as you've been receiving a lot of feedback in the district about concerns about behavior, concerns about the school environment at the start of the school year. So it's good to know firsthand kind of the process, the programming, what is in place already. And I really love the tangibility of the Oakview examples and appreciate the insight of having it permeate everything. I think that's so critical. So that really, having those really concrete examples are helpful. I guess what I didn't see is any data or metrics to say, how do we know that we're seeing the improvements expected? And I know we're kind of readjusting and rebaselining everything. Could you maybe speak a little bit about how we're measuring the success of these supports in terms of what we're trying to achieve? Anybody?
Bill can speak for his school, but for our schools, we measure, so the work we do every day is the work that's in our SIP, right? So the SIP and the progress that they monitor there. Also knowing that our schools are a little bit different in how they function, so looking at what types of measurable data. So we also have different data that we collect, and we're working with the old research and assessment, I don't remember what they're called right now, at the district to try and make sure that we get some data that more accurately reflects what we're trying to show happening instead of in a traditional brick and mortar, here's what you see. But if you look at OALCs, obviously we don't have the data for 279 Online since our first year. If you look at OALCs over the past years, our data and our behavior data has decreased behavior, suspensions, out of school placements referrals has all decreased significantly since our PBIS work. And then also when you're looking at individual student data, and so this is the stuff that's not necessarily reported in a SIP, but in our HST is what we call it, OLC, where the scholars are moving from a tier 3 down to a tier 2 or a tier 1 is showing some of that effectiveness of that intervention. And same thing then I would say with any of our 279 online ones, we're just kind of starting the same process, but as we see the scholars moving down and being more successful, it's also things like credit earning. We talk about engagement, and what that engagement looks like might be different from scholar to scholar. It might be passing a class, it might be turning in some assignments, it might be just moving from this little step to here, but how are we measuring for individual scholars as well? So the bigger SIP, and then also some of that individual data that we use in those tier 2 teams.
Director Simons, maybe I can add, when they talk about tier 1, there's school-wide or class-wide data. Then if individual students are struggling with individual discrete behaviors, then there's more progress monitoring on a more frequent basis. Maybe it's weekly or bi-weekly, measuring progress on that and really establishing a trajectory that we need to set for that student. And then beyond that, if it's still even more intensive supports needed, now you're getting into diagnostic assessment and identification and then really highly structured individualized interventions. So I might have stole your thunder there, Bill. I'm sorry.
Yes, actually you did. That's okay. And so just to reiterate that same point, the data that most intrigues me is the data that we collect through our problem-solving team and child study team. So I'm really looking at who is coming in, what are the behaviors, what are the interventions that we're using, how are we tracking them with fidelity, and what are the results. And so, you know, from a problem-solving team referral, and the profile, you know, construction, all the way through the data tracking to the end where there's a resolution or determination. Sometimes we're successful, sometimes we need to seek the support of a child study team to do a more intensive investigation into the student's learning needs. So that's the data that I, you know, would look at most closely, and I'm very fortunate I have a partner principal, Stephanie Webster, who operates and leads that problem-solving team. So we do look really closely at that intervention data in particular, because that is the most direct result of what our kind of focused work is. I sometimes wonder about how you measure a lack of behavior or a change in behavior, because there's so many things, so many variables in a school that take place. It's hard to know, you know, one is directly impacting as opposed to one amongst many things is catching this particular student with these unique variables. So, but the data that kind of goes between that tier 2 and tier 3 world is really where I like to live.
Right, great. Well, and it's really impressive to see that comprehensive surround. And I guess my assumption is that what's being done at Oakview is a similar program being done at other school sites. What about the middle school level? Is that same comprehensive? Yeah. Because middle school is what we've been hearing a lot of feedback around the challenges at the middle schools this year, and I think just for the public to be able to kind of see that question being asked and be able to kind of hear what is being done, I think is important to the conversation.
Yes, correct. And in middle school, you add in puberty, along with the uncertainness of what our students and scholars have gone in through the last year and a half, and it does create challenges. But what the sites have reported is what is happening at every school. I think Amy was what we expect from everybody. That is a consistent practice. We want you to look at data. We want you to make decisions on data. We want you to have expectations. We want you to get your student voice in those expectations and your family voice in those expectations, so that it's not, you know, just wah, wah, wah. And as they are teaching and reteaching, and as students rise, then we have the tier 2 and the tier 3, and that is consistent, and has been a lot of work over the last 9 years to get more consistency in our practices, so that students get the full continuum of supports and practices at every one of our schools.
Okay, thank you so much.
I'd probably add too, we've had this conversation, so when you think of our current middle schoolers, our 8th graders really had 1 year of middle school experience. Our 7th graders are literally getting their first experience with the 6th graders, because it's been since their 5th grade year where they had a a more typical school year. So we've talked about how do we double down on these efforts. Now, we still follow our discipline policy when we have to, right? Because sometimes you need to interrupt some things to decide how do we intervene now, right? But how can we prevent that through a lot of these things? And consistency, to your point, is pretty key. But it's got to be that much more explicit as we have learned the first few weeks of school. I don't know if that's any different for a second grader as I look at Bill, but middle school's been really challenging, not just in our district.
Yes.
It's just, we're all kind of living through how do we reset and have students feel more comfortable and have kind of more of a positive experience with those expectations. So I know Amy, you and I have talked a lot about that, and Michael and I have talked a lot about it too as we work with our principals and what they've been experiencing. And we've had lots of crises in the last few weeks, as you've all seen. So it's not unique to our district, but we've been living through that and responding when we have to, but then get out in front of it, preventing.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody. Really helpful for where we're at.
Yeah, and thank you. I don't have any questions. I do have some comments because, well, one, to Director assignments, I will say my junior still remembers, she can still recite the Basswood Bees. I'm looking at Patrick Smith. We used to be the principal at Basswood. So, I mean, just that PBS expectations, piece across the district is so important. And I think that, what you've all hit on is the theme that we heard from our student reps, and also we heard when the AMSD reps, students came together. It's just this relationship and connectedness, and that sense of belonging is so key and critical. And while I know that we, do have a discipline policy, I also really appreciate kind of going above and beyond and looking at what's the undercurrent here, and how do we get ahead of to get some of this. And one of the programs I've been really involved in has been, I've been able to sit on a couple of advisory panels for RAMP. And that's where I really see the intentionality with counselors, coming together to look at, what are the issues, and how do we start to hone in on certain groups or, certain behaviors, and then really look and problem solve together with students. And I think that's been really incredible. And, Bill, Dave Werner, he reached out too, and I know I was part of that RAMP. So I know it's so special. And then, even at the Park Center football game, one of the student counselors who really works with our homeless and highly mobile populations was just talking about the ways that she's been able to, really work with students who are experiencing homelessness for whatever the reason is, and really just proud of our school district community for coming together and providing resources. And so, and then I just want to say, I just appreciate even, Michael, just the framing of this whole conversation, because starting out with the example of Bart Becker, I mean, a principal to say I love you after, an announcement, that's something that, may at first catch people off guard, but I really think it's something that is so special, and it will live with our students, our scholars, for a really long time. So anyways, just thank you so much for all the work that you're doing. I know we all really appreciated this update, so thank you. Good?
Yep,
All
thank
right.
you. Yeah, moving on.
All right. The next agenda item is a consent agenda. Board members, are there any items that you'd like to remove for separate consideration? Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as printed?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, motion by Director Simon, seconded by Director Mosqueda Jones. Is there any discussion? All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. All right, motion passes. Our action item this evening is approval of gifts to the districts. Is there a motion to approve gifts to the district totaling $27,806.30?
So moved.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
All right, motion by Director Mosqueda Jones, seconded by Director Simon. Is there any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. All right, motion passes 6-0. The informational items this evening are first reading, rewrite of policy 102, equal educational and employment opportunity and corresponding procedures to include repeal of policy 413, prohibition against discrimination, harassment, and violence, and corresponding procedures and incorporation of substantive requirements under Policy 102, and first reading amendment of Policy 514, bullying and hazing prohibition and corresponding procedure. General Counsel Tim Palmetier will share information. I know, I was like, wait, where are you?
Thank you, Chair Dawson, Walton, school board members, and Superintendent McIntyre. There are 3 policies on the agenda for first reading tonight: Policy 102, Policy 413, and Policy 514. First, I'll address the rewrite of Policy 102, which is the Equal Educational Employment Opportunity Policy. This policy has not been reviewed or revised since December of 2000. The requirements mandated by this policy are mandated or required by Title VI and Title VII of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, as well as Title IX of the Educational Amendments Act of 1972. Because this policy substantially overlaps with the anti-discrimination requirements of Policy 413, and a violation of either policy would require the same type of investigation or corrective action, it's being recommended that Policies 102 and 413 be combined as one uniform policy. I might also add that there is confusion when you have overlap and seemingly parallel or identical policies. From my vantage point, these certainly can be rolled into one. In addition, would be repeal of 413 for the reasons stated above. This policy was last reviewed and revised in April of 2018. The substantive provisions of this policy are specifically required by Minnesota Statute 121A03. Since all of the substantive provisions and requirements of this policy are being incorporated into Policy 102, we would be able to repeal Policy 413. And then lastly is Policy 514, bullying and hazing prohibition. This policy was last reviewed in October of 2017. The policy is required by Minnesota statute, two statutes in fact, 121A03 and 121A.69. The proposed revisions to the policy are largely non-substantive and are being proposed for clarity. However, I will say there are 2 I'd say slightly more substantive changes. In the policy, those pertain to sections 2, B, and C, which are being proposed as revisions in the attached board materials. These revisions reflect, the first revision in 2B reflects the exact language and prohibition required by state statute. Our current version does not do that. And section 2C is being added to clarify that employees and other representatives of the district who engage in hazing of any student would be in violation of the policy and held accountable if found in violation. First reading begins a 4-week period for reaction to the proposed policies by concerned groups or individuals. After a 4-week period, the school board may adopt any or all of the proposed revisions or changes after second reading. The proposed revisions to these policies are available on the district website with the agenda for tonight's meeting. Comments on the policies discussed here may also be directed to the school board or myself. Comments on these policies may also be provided online through the school board policies and procedures webpage located on the district website.
Okay, thank you. Our last agenda item is adjournment. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, motion by, you guys want to stay longer or no?
I mean, come on.
Okay, what else can we talk about? Motion by Director Brooks, seconded by Director Mosqueda Jones. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passes 6-0. 5-0, sorry. This meeting is adjourned at 8:00 p.m. Thank you, everyone.
Exactly 8 o'clock.